And time now for Newsmakers, and joining us for a look at what's made the headlines this week are Romilly Madew, who's the Chief Executive of the Green Building Council, and Julian Leeser, who's the Executive Director of the Menzies Research Centre. Thank you so much for coming in and speaking with us today. Let's kick off with the Ryan Giggs affair, and of course he's the Manchester United football star who took out an injunction against the media to prevent reporting of an alleged extramarital affair. His name was freely discussed on Twitter. He was then named in Parliament under privilege, and of course he wanted to sue Twitter initially because of the revelations, and I believe he's got a very big football match coming up this weekend. First of all, I wonder if I can start with you, Romilly, how much privacy should celebrities be entitled to?
I'm not sure it's just celebrities. I think it's everybody has a right to privacy. And the concern with what's happened with Twitter, and also Wikipedia released 4 celebrities' names on who had super injunctions as well, is really everybody's right. And the abuse of the power of not only Twitter but other forms, and the bullying that might involve or whatever. So really I think it's everyone's right, whether they're celebrity or not.
Okay, Julian, do you share the same view?
Yes, I'm in favour of privacy generally. I think that there's an issue here with these super injunctions. It's a particularly British thing because of the UK Human Rights Act, which we don't have in Australia except for in Victoria, where there's a right to privacy and a right to the family life. And that's how Ryan Giggs was able to get this injunction. You wouldn't be able to achieve that in Australia. But the idea that Twitter can somehow subvert the court processes, I think, is wrong, and I'm not sure they could get away with that here.
So it really shows that the law needs to catch up. Twitter wasn't around 3 or 4 years ago, and other forms of social media are moving really, really quickly.
But how, example, does a social networking site stop people discussing things?
Well, under Australian law, there's that Gutnick case, which you'll remember. If a person has a substantial reputation in a particular place and they bring an action in that place, despite the fact that the tweet may have gone on in another place, they have a right to sue, as it may be the Twitter company here. Take this example with Ryan Giggs. If a media outlet, which had the super injunction imposed upon it, if one of its journalists had access to Twitter account and decided to tweet this information, that I think would have been a real subversion of the rule of law. And I think it's important that journalists not be allowed to get around this by putting things out surreptitiously on Twitter, and I think Twitter should be responsible for these matters.
Well, in this case, I don't think it was necessarily journalists who put the information out on Twitter. And of course, this MP came over the top of everybody and revealed this information under parliamentary privilege.
It's a bit of an abuse of that parliamentary privilege. I don't think there's anybody who disagrees with that view. Parliamentary privilege is a safeguard, and this was just flaunting it completely.
Now, it wasn't just, I actually was in the UK last week, and it wasn't just Giggs, and this happened before Giggs. It was also the former CEO of the Bank of Scotland. There was an MP who also did the same about parliamentary privilege, and the head of the Bank of Scotland, I think his name was Sir Fred Goodwin.
So what do you think's going on here? Why are parliamentarians wanting to out people, so to speak?
Well, he said because Goodwin was having an affair when the Bank of Scotland was falling apart, and it was people's right to know what was happening in his social life that had an impact, such a huge impact, which the government then had to bail out. So the MP was saying he felt that everyone, the public, had the right to know that. Well, that was his view. But, I think we've just got to be sure and careful around everyone's right to know and the privacy of public.